What's wrong with bad art? What's wrong with creating bad art or ugly art? And who is the judge of what is good art and bad art? Are you sabotaging yourself when you sit down to create something? How can you create freely without the worry that you've done something wrong? Because really, when it comes to art, do mistakes really matter when you're sketching, drawing, painting? I'm going to give you some tips on how to overcome the fear of making ugly art or bad art. And let's talk about the reasons why we have this fear of creating something that everyone's not going to love, that we ourselves may not love. What's wrong with that? And how do we overcome that? So let's talk about this. I think the first thing you have to do is go back to your why. Why are you creating art? Why did you pick up a paintbrush or a pencil or a pen? Like, what is the reason for creating? And if you are creating from within and you just feel compelled to draw and paint and create, then you really have to set aside that worry that what you are making is ugly or bad or wrong. Because when it comes to improving your skills as an artist, you have to create all the time, whether it's good or not good. One of the things that I like to do is look at a piece that I've created, and whether it's ugly or not is not relevant. For me, it's what's one or two things from this one thing that I created that I really like, and can I take this one or two things that I learned or did and apply it to my artwork going forward? So when you first start, especially with mixed media, I made a lot of muddy messes, a lot of bad art, and a lot of bad art that at the time I thought was really good until I look years later at a sketchbook and I'm like, oh, I really thought that was great. And now I can see that I've improved on it. So two things. One, there's nothing wrong with being oblivious to the fact that maybe your art isn't the greatest, and for you to be compelled to create more and think that what you're creating is great, go for it. If you are one of those people that gives yourself a really hard time and you're constantly sort of criticizing, that inner critic comes out all the time when you're creating, I encourage you to look at it and say, what's one thing that I got from this? Was it, oh, I really like to add sparkles to my creations, or I really like the way I'm drawing faces here. I learned something about drawing eyes or a nose. Can you take that going forward? So your sketchbooks should be a stepping stone and a place for you to have a creative outlet to create whatever you want, however it looks. And it's not meant to be seen by everybody anyway. Even though on social media, you will see people do their art journal flip through, and every single page of their art journal is a masterpiece. It's a thing of beauty and perfection. But what's wrong with imperfection? And what's wrong with not your typical beautiful sketchbooks or art books? I'm looking at a couple of my creations here, and I know they're not perfect, and I know that people may not look at them and think they're beautiful, but I look at them and I'm thinking, what's one or two things that I like about this? And what I've learned from these is that I like using oil pastels in my mixed media, which is something that I hadn't really done before. So whether you are creating something beautiful or not is irrelevant. What are you learning, and how can you apply that going forward? And I think people need to stop beating themselves up about what they're creating. I think another fear is the judgment of others. And that's just a fear that you're going to have to face when you're putting your artwork out there, especially if you're an artist that wants to get some more recognition, or maybe this is where you want your career to go. I think you have to be really brave and just take that first step and put some stuff out there. There was a time where I used to join Facebook art groups and share my art, especially my abstract art, but I actually got kicked out of a Facebook group. I got kicked out of an abstract Facebook group that had thousands and thousands of people in it because I posted my artwork in the Facebook group, and the owner of the group deleted my artwork. And when I asked why, she told me it was because my artwork wasn't abstract enough. That abstract, she had her defined like definition of abstract, and apparently my artwork didn't fit within the scope of that. However, there were other artists that were doing the same thing and they fit within it. So I posted my painting again. Anyway, it started a huge discussion on what is abstract and what is not. And it kind of took up a lot of space in the Facebook group. And then when I went to log in the next day, I was banned from a Facebook group because apparently my artwork wasn't abstract enough. And that really, it hurt. Not only, like, it was nice to see people, saying, yes, it is abstract. And it was interesting to see people saying, no, it wasn't. But to get kicked out of a group, be rejected for my art, I was really, from a Facebook group, it really bothered me. I was really personally hurt by that. The interesting thing was, though, the very next day I opened my email and I made a sale of one of my paintings on Saatchi Art. So it was a very interesting lesson to be learned about what's considered good art, what's considered, what the rules we put on art, and then me feeling like I wasn't good enough because I was being judged by whoever this person was that decided to kick me out. But the interesting part was the very next day I sold a painting on Saatchi Art. So I think there's just lessons to be learned to embracing your own style, discovering what your style is, be free to make mistakes, and you don't have to agree with everyone on what your art is or what you're trying to create. Because some people are going to embrace you and some people are going to block you. And that's okay. I think some people fear making ugly or bad art. Maybe it's the materials that they have. Maybe they feel like, oh, I don't have the expensive markers or the expensive supplies that other real artists have for creating art. But I'm here to tell you, you can create any. I actually started with crayons. I started painting and drawing with crayons because I'd be sitting at the table with my daughter, who was very young at the time, and we spent so much time coloring and drawing that's when I was like, how do I draw a face? How do I draw this? How do I draw that? And all I had were crayons and magic markers or scented markers, Crayola. And that's fine too. Like, everyone needs to start somewhere. And I've seen people create some amazing art with children's markers that are water soluble, that they'll draw with them, and then they'll add water to it and use it like a watercolor. So you don't necessarily have to have expensive materials. Just use what you have and create every day. And again, when you're creating something that you think is terrible or no good, pick one or two things from it that you really like and add it to the next sketch. You will improve. Eventually, you will improve. Part of making bad art is discovering what your art style is, what your particular passion and style with respect to art is. So you might really love and appreciate someone who does some realism, drawing faces that look exactly like a picture. And that's a beautiful art style. You might appreciate someone who does fashion sketches and is really good at that. But there's so many different art styles out there. And if you are creating from your heart and soul and willing to create art that is not considered beautiful, that is bad, if you're willing to make mistakes, you can really discover and pull out from your own self what your own style of art is and what you like, whether it's perfection or messy. I personally like messy. I don't like perfection because I just feel like none of us are perfect. And I honestly think that the imperfect art, the ugly art, the bad art is some of the most interesting art, because we can all find little bits and pieces of ourselves in the art that we see. So I encourage you to keep trying and keep making art every day, practice every day, and discover what you love. And if you are not making bad art, then you're not going to improve your skills and ability when it comes to being an artist and creating. So if you're not failing, then you're not putting yourself out there enough. You're always learning. You never stop learning or improving. And the only way to do that is to make a mess, make mistakes, fail, pick yourself up and try again. Giving yourself permission to play with art. And any time spent on art or creating is not time wasted, whether or not the end result is it something of beauty or something that you want to toss in the garbage, because it's the whole creating process that it's really good for your soul, it's good for your mind, it's good for your brain. I think it's a form of therapy. I think art is absolutely a form of therapy. So there is never time wasted when you're spent creating. I think it's a gift that you give yourself, doing something that you love.